So here's a prize question, and let's see how many of you know the answer to this. Here's, what do you think are the top skills that employers are looking for? And if you press Alt-H, you can pop up in the chat room and throw in a couple suggestions. Teamwork, critical thinking, innovation. Now, there are always questions about what exactly is a skill? Is innovation a skill, or is it a mindset? All right. So yes, yes, and yes to some of these. For the top one, the will to improve. Is that a skill or a mindset? I've often heard the growth mindset as one way to look at that as well too. Is I guess challenging the status quo, not accepting the way things are, and no matter how good things are, or even bad things are, of course, too, is to say, look, there must be a better way. There must be something better out there. Research published by the World Economic Forum, but research done by Fathom AI, which is a Sydney-based AI startup. Actually, they do the back-end analysis for the World Economic Forum on this data. World Economic Forum publishes the Jobs of the Future report year after year after year, or every couple of years, but they do it consistently. And the top skills are relatively stable pretty much every time they've done the analysis. That this idea to think analytically and critically, challenge the status quo, and innovate is above and beyond the #1 skill out there that employers are looking for. The next ones down, then #2 and #3 are still quite stable, and then after that, the next couple ones tend to be there and then kind of change order every once in a while. But what you'll see here is a lot of you're innovating in more and more in an increasingly complex environment, in a way that simply just can't be automated, a way that you're dealing with humans, that you have to interact with them in a very collaborative, cross-sectional, cross-functional way. So above all of that is kind of the purpose of, like, why are you doing this? Well, to make things better, to innovate. So you're in the right place if you're here to learn innovation and learn how to improve things. So who are we? So I'm Associate Professor Martin Leamo. I'm the course director for the Diploma in Innovation. If you Google around, I've won a handful of awards around teaching entrepreneurship education. I've developed a couple courses. We've got a rock star teacher here, Julia French, who's consistently beat me in terms of the teaching ratings. Damn you. She's absolutely amazing in terms of her ability to teach innovation frameworks, entrepreneurship frameworks, and pull in some amazing industry partners. We also have 2 students who are done the Diploma in Innovation. So you hear really good stories about what brought them to it, what did they expect, how did the program meet their expectations, and by all means, we'll open the floor to you to ask them questions too. So you're not just hearing the message we want you to hear, but also it's the more frank version of it too. So I'll give you a quick overview of the Diploma in Innovation, and then open up to Q&A with the students, facilitated by Julia, and then answer any questions freely either through the chat or through using your mic and video, and of course some guidance on how to apply. So why the Diploma in Innovation, or how the Diploma in Innovation? So the Diploma in Innovation kind of addresses that need to innovate, to be entrepreneurial, to seek ways to create value. And this goes beyond just starting companies. This need to innovate and create value is, in a collaborative way, is hands down what people are looking for. And so what you can do is, you've got your core degree, and this diploma degree adds to every single bachelor's degree, except for the BCII, which is already a double degree, which overlaps to some extent with this here. And the ethos of it is to think really big, to say, okay, great, you might have this problem, but maybe this problem is actually a symptom of a much, much, much bigger problem, a more complex problem that needs deeper, more collaborative thought about how to change that problem. One slogan we've heard is to change the climate, change the system, not the climate. And that's exactly kind of the thinking we want, is students who really want to shake things up and change the way things are, and realize that it's not just about a product or service, but it's about the whole of systems approach. And some students do this purely for that experience, for the industry partners, and others say, actually, you know what, that extra department matters, that I have a bachelor's degree and I've got this other thing that really distinguishes me, that I can go to the job market, to employers, to partners, to co-founders, and say, look, I've got this additional qualification. Coming out of this, you'll have the qualification, but also an amazing portfolio of projects you'll have worked on. And towards the end, we'll also touch on how this is also a pathway to the BCII. If you've heard about it and want to hear more about it, we can definitely take on those questions more in the Q&A. Pardon me if I speak quickly, but I realize we're kind of always in a time crunch, and I'd love to hear more from you than you hear from me. So as mentioned, analytical thinking innovation is the #1 skill for according to future jobs. In parallel with that is that there's increasing data and trends showing that jobs are changing relatively quickly. That's, before you used to have a job or a career for life. Now it's more likely that you'll have 3 or 4 careers, and each of those careers will have 4 or 5 jobs in it. And that by the time you graduate, you might be picking up jobs that didn't exist at the time you started your degree. A lot of the job titles and job roles are changing on a relatively rapid pace. Here's a more recent study from, a recent study from Alpha Beta, which is a local consultancy. So a bit more specific to the Australian context, but still applies globally, is that they're looking very specifically, not just for people who are innovative, but people who can bridge disciplines, who can bridge sectors, who can bring together people who might normally or naturally disagree. So these are just a handful of reports. There are many, 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 many more, and they all reemphasize more or less the same point, that the road to success is, and the future of jobs, the way ahead is through picking up innovation and entrepreneurial capabilities. But those are just kind of one way to look at it. The more holistic way to look at it is that we teach you how to do that in a way that embraces complex systems thinking. So taking a very systems view of, okay, I'm not just solving a problem, but I'm addressing a whole problem space that's a network of related situations, related problems. And so you're doing that in a way that creates value. So that's innovative or entrepreneurial, and you're solving those problems. And you're doing it in a way that has specific transdisciplinary practices and methods. Underlying all of this is that you're doing this in a very ethical way, an imaginative way. You wouldn't want to be doing this in a mischievous or conniving way. Who doesn't want a better world that has better social equality and social equity, social justice, and more so in this degree than I think any other degree at UTS is the entrepreneurial and the intrapreneurial skills too. And what you'll see is that each of the graduate attributes for the diploma in innovation are portable across jobs and across careers. Some of the graduate attributes that you see in your core degree might be specific to, say, an accountancy or to nursing or your initial degree or your initial career path. But as your career path evolves, what you should also be looking for are some of these portable skills that you can apply job after job or career after career. So the diploma in innovation is something that takes in students from every discipline, from every faculty, and it brings you all together in sort of this melting pot. And it's by and large for students who are looking for that competitive edge. That's the framing around what do the employers of the future want. So what we look for is students who really have that innate creativity or innovation, but also that curiosity to figure out how to do all of this. And before I guess we get into too much of a debate about it, yes, creativity can be taught. We're not all necessarily born equally creative, or some more creative, massively more creative than others. It can't be taught, just as many other things can be taught. In terms of the career paths forward, this could be applicable for more of the startup scene, the startups as side hustlers, but many people, as they go further down the career path, end up having their own careers. So they are their own professional practices. So you might become your own independent consultant. You might become a creative consultant, you might be run your own medical practice. So what you want to learn is your discipline-specific capabilities, but also learn how to build a very creative, innovative enterprise around that, or understand the enterprise context in which you're fulfilling your disciplinary capabilities. So this is more the structure of the deployment innovation. So we've got year 1, year 2, year 3 vertically here. And it's designed to start right in the July session, right in the winter session of your first year, and then continue in the summer session between first and second year. So there are subjects that run in the July session in the winter, also subjects that run in the December session in the beginning of summer, and some that run in February towards the end of summer. So you're getting most of your summer. We're not taking away whole summer. You're actually getting a substantial chunk of your winter as well. The other thing to note is that these subjects run 2 days a week times 3 weeks. So it's not full time for those 3 weeks, it's part time. And if you do decide to take the diploma towards your second year, should any of you already be in your second year or even your third year, you can actually take this in an accelerated pathway, and we can get into that a little bit later. But the gist of this here is that you start with first just exploring complex problem spaces. So don't race to a solution, find out what a really good problem is, like what is a problem worth solving. Then we'll provide you more systematic methodological approaches to say, okay, now that we've identified a really good, interesting, complex problem, how do we unpack it? How do we start to come up with creative solutions for it? The third part of that creative intelligence series then says, okay, so a lot of that so far has been here and now. Let's look at what does the future look like? How do we make our solution sustainable? What is the future of this complex system? So a lot of that sounds relatively abstract for each of these subjects. We do provide some really concrete, tangible industry partners. This then gets threaded in with the entrepreneurship stream. So in July, we're looking at a specific context like the entrepreneurial ecosystems. Last July, we ran a partnership between Regional Development Australia, Sydney, Regional Development Illawarra, and 6 local councils for them to understand how each of their councils functions as a system that develops entrepreneurial value. So that's either growth and jobs in the existing companies or new companies or new products and new services. And how those precincts, those councils then interact with each other. This time around, we're looking at more of a CBD-based ecosystem. Then we look at, so that goes broad around what is the context in which entrepreneurship or value creation happens. Then we dig deeper on, okay, how does one individual do something about this? How do you experiment and use innovation frameworks to really carve out your place within this environment? And then level that up to say, okay, that's good for one opportunity. How does it look like if you're creating a platform for you to build on, for others to build on? And how do you access other people's platforms to pursue your opportunity? And how do you get scale? This is the recommended sequence of subjects. You can actually take the subjects out of sequence. And on the diploma webpage, the URL's in the bottom corner. On the left-hand side, there's an FAQ. Further down there, there's more detailed description on how you actually might sandwich this down to 2 years, or I think possibly even 1.5 years. So because it's 2 days a week times 3 weeks, you can take 2 intensives simultaneously. That gets pretty intense, but entirely doable if you're up for it. All right, and so pathways wise, kind of zooming back out, you've got your bachelor's degree. There's the diploma in innovation that adds all this value to it to help contextualize it and really leverage it and help you stand out to everybody else who's graduating from UTS and any other university with just that bachelor's degree. And should you be interested in the startup scene, there is a natural segue to that where you might be interested in being a founder or working for a founder and working in an innovative company. For those of you who are still a bit shy about startups, do really have a close look at them, because 90% of the new jobs created are from these high growth companies, are from startups. For those of you interested in the pathway to BCI, you can start with the bachelor's degree, you can start with a diploma, and partway through you can transition to the BCI after the first two diploma subjects. and happy to take on more questions about that if you're interested in the Q&A. For now, we'll just focus on the diploma in its own right, and then here too, there's a segue to the startup scene. But it's a bit more tentative because the BCI, usually through its 4th year internship experience, points students towards towards internships and working in in the corporate world first, and getting some experience before then having you reconsider joining the startup scene or high growth companies. Lastly, every once in a while, the business school runs this honors and entrepreneurship program. So it's a 1-year program that really complements that you've done the bachelor's degree, diploma in innovation, and you're interested in startups. Some of the students who've done that actually end up in the corporate world too, to be the entrepreneur. And you can take a little bit of a, I don't want to say shortcut, but you can take 2 of the subjects out of the diploma and have them recognized against the Bachelor in Entrepreneurship honors as well. So it takes less work, so you can focus more on getting things done. Lastly, fresh off the press is our latest attempt to visualize some of these pathways, where coming soon in 22, there are some general electives and transdisciplinarity, but right now we have these innovation electives. These are the subjects in the diploma. You can dabble in the diploma on a subject by subject basis, although we do recommend applying for the diploma. That then instantly lets you self-enroll to any of the subjects right away. You don't have to submit any e-requests. Some degree programs have innovation submajors, so the creative digital enterprise submajor in business is a popular one. If you have a choice block, you can also try and fit one of these transdisciplinary submajors in there. And then of course there's the diploma in innovation, and some people go into the BCI, some go into startups, and other ones off to the job market, off to the big wide world. How to apply? We try to make this relatively straightforward. Thanks to COVID, everything shifted online. No more printed paper going to the student center. Is to go to dipin.uts.edu.au. There's an application form there. It should be relatively straightforward to fill out. Email it to the FTDI APO. Within about a day or 2, they vet it and send it to me. I have the final approval. I've yet to reject one other than the student who I couldn't accept because they were already graduating. So if you've come to UTS, then that's usually the threshold that you're currently enrolled students, and we'll embrace you with open arms. And we don't worry too much about grades because we've seen some amazing students who are just outliers. That's, academic content isn't necessarily their strength, but man, they're creative and go-getters. So applications close on June 25th. Although we do encourage you to apply as soon as you think about it. Don't put it off because it's too easy to set and forget. Get it done as soon as you can, and give yourself the option to have that amazing future and tell your friends. At this point, let me flip back to stopping the screen share. I realized I've talked really, really quickly. Haven't kept an eye on the chat room. But at this point, if there are any burning questions, jump in. Otherwise, we'll segue to Julia facilitating Q&A with the students. So I give the obligatory awkward 10 seconds of delay before any transition. You jump in by voice or by chat. 2, 1, 0. Okay, take it away, Julia.
Hi guys. So I saw that we had a couple more people join us, so that's cool. So we'll just chat briefly with Connor. So Connor graduated from the diploma this last term. He's had me for several of his subjects. And then Olivia, I begged and pleaded for her to come tonight and talk to you guys. She's now doing the honors Bachelor of Entrepreneurship that Martin just mentioned. And her core degree was in communications. Connor, yours was in mechatronics, correct? Engineering and mechatronics, yeah?
Yeah, mechatronics and mechanics.
Yeah, mechanics. So I think right there is a wide, diverse group. So that kind of gives you explains like the different types of students that we have that come in. So it's wide, diverse, definitely not your normal kind of like only engineering, only, startup kind of founder types that are like building something. We're really here to teach you about innovation and everything that's happening that encompasses all things innovation. So I came up with some questions with Connor's help, of kind of just what, I guess there's like, when you're making your decision on taking the diploma, like it's an extra, like it's doing something more than what you would normally do. Which at your age, at, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, you'd rather be doing other things maybe. So you have to have like a real like feeling that this is something that's for you. So I wanted to kind of ask Connor and Olivia, we can kind of start with that as like the first question. So I came up with 3 questions. I'll share them in the chat so you guys can also see them. But I think the one big one I'll start with is, what are the characteristics that you would look, and they're not in order over there, but Connor, what would you say are the characteristics that were similar between yourself and maybe all of the other students that you encountered in your different diploma subjects? And why do you think that is? And then how did that create the experience that you had that was completely different than the other experiences you had at UTS?
Okay, so the big one, which definitely has to be mentioned, is just having an inner drive. So someone who can go to class and be excited about learning and be willing to take on the opportunity to do some more research and learn something new, something completely different to what they would normally do. Another trait that I saw was naturally curious. So you see something happen, and instead of thinking, oh, cool, that just happened, you question why it happened, what made it happen, and if you change the variables, how would that change? The last one, which I found was quite important to consider, is not being in it just for the certificate of graduation. If you go into it thinking, oh, just here for a slip of paper, I don't think it's going to be as useful. But if you go in with the attitude of what can I learn today, then it will be quite a fun degree.
Would you say that as you were kind of like going, once you started and then you started kind of going down the path, like you started to see the different, I guess, like work opportunities that were kind of down at the end? Like, did you feel like that you started off kind of going like, oh, I don't really know where this is all going to lead. And then you were like, oh, actually, I can see that there's job opportunities and there's all these other opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started the diploma at 18, 19 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'm 22 now. I still have no idea. But I've sort of just picked up on different skills throughout. One of the great things about the diploma is the cross-contamination between other majors. So as an engineering student, we've done no core work of communication, marketing, anything to do with that. Through the skills that I learned from just contamination of other people, conversations with marketing students, I sort of got a gauge of how to do marketing. And I've started my own company recently, and I've just done a marketing gig for a company because I just learned how to do it from the diploma. So you do get quite a wide range of skills from it that can lead to some pretty incredible job opportunities. Another great job opportunity from it was so in one of the subjects I did with Martin last year, we collaborated with RDA Sydney and Cogra Council. And that ended up leading on to a bit of a pilot study. And underneath Martin, there was quite a number of us that just went through and continued the work that we were doing in the subject for an assignment. And we did it as a job for a couple of months. It was really cool as well because I got to make a paper with Cogra.
Love it, Connor. I love it. That's everything that I wanted to say. Like, if I could say all that, I bet that's what I would say. It's a little better if you say it and it's actually real. So, Olivia, how about for you? What would you say would be your characteristics that you think are all similar between? Like, what do you and Connor have in common? Like, how did you end up in the same class and doing the same diploma?
I would say I feel like most people doing the diploma want to do it because they want to broaden their skills from their standard degree, because obviously when you're doing your core degree, you're surrounded by all the same people and you don't really learn anything beyond the standard theory. And the diploma is a completely different experience. You really like bounce off everyone else's knowledge. You learn a lot more. yeah, as Connor said, you get to like learn about different faculties. I personally did it because I do communications, but I wanted more of a business side, and I feel like I definitely got that from the diploma. But other characteristics, what do you think? Yeah, definitely, as long as you're willing to really give the 3 weeks your all, really take it as a learning opportunity. Yeah, don't just rush through the work. Don't just do the assignments. I feel like I did that in my very first subject, but I quickly learned that was the wrong thing to do. So yeah, that is probably
it. And then what about job wise? Like, so now you've gone on and you're doing the honors, a Bachelor of Entrepreneurship. Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you feel like you were prepared well to like go and take that? I mean, that's a pretty high course level. Like that's like almost master's degree for your young selves. Like, do you feel like you were prepared when you got in there and it was like you were ready? Or do you feel like, I don't know, like how has that experience been? And job wise, like, do you feel like you have opportunities that are coming your way?
Yeah, definitely. Like before I finished the diploma and before I was considering jobs, I would have never really considered the startup space or anything like that beforehand. But now it's like you kind of have the choice of which path you want to go down. I'm still not sure myself, but I know that there are 2 options available. With regard to the honors, yeah, definitely, because the diploma has lots to do with startups, that definitely helped. It definitely my vocabulary, and like I know a lot of the jargon, which is helpful already to know so early on in the honors. But yeah, that I'd say I'm decently prepared, not 100%, but yeah, it definitely helped, and yeah, helped me get into that kind of area.
Okay. And then I guess what would you, for you, Olivia, what would you say the 3 things that kind of stand out for you in the diploma? Like if you had to give somebody like, these were the 3 most like extraordinary things that happened while I was in the diploma, what would you highlight if you had to pick 3 out of all of your different subjects?
So, okay, 3 most things. I'm not sure if this is what you mean by that, but the best thing for me was always like the dynamic of the classes. It's very, very, very different to your core degree classes. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but to me it was a good thing. It was almost a bit like, because you like high schooly, because you spend the entire day together, and it's not so isolated in your own learning, which I personally enjoyed. What else?
So lots of group work. So group projects, group work.
Yeah.
No exams.
Yeah. No exams, no tests, only written assessments. Okay. And then what else would you say were your other 2 that you thought were like, wow, this is awesome? Or a moment when you were just like sitting there and you're like, wow, I learned something today. Like I didn't know that before. That's really interesting. Like I didn't know about that.
Probably the project in it's called the 94662 subject, where basically it was you pursue a startup idea as far as you can in the span of 3 weeks. And my first day compared to my last day, like my change in mindset was crazy. Like, I did not think we would take it as far as we did. Like we ended up getting to a clickable prototype. So by the end of it, I was like, damn, I did not expect that to come out of the subject, but it was definitely worthwhile. It's a really worthwhile 3 weeks. So, yeah. That's
good. And then what would you say would be like another like highlight where you were like, oh, this isn't so great. Like there's all good things and bad things about every experience, right? So if you had to like pick like a thing that you were like, this is not so awesome, what would you probably pick?
The fact that it's like 3 to 4 assessments in the span of 3 weeks. But having said that, it's a good learning experience, I find. It helps you work under pressure. It makes you more efficient in the next semesters to come. So,
yeah, all about the efficiency, Olivia. You know I am. All right, Connor, for you, what would you say are like your top 3 kind of like highlights, like positive one, something where you learn something, and then maybe something where like it just wasn't that awesome.
Okay. So one of the, I guess, key moments that stuck with me was in one of your classes. I think it was the evaluating portfolios one.
Yep.
And we'd gotten given an assignment that was really quite difficult. And due to the time constraints of the subject, we really only had 2 or 3 days to get it done. Everyone got something in, handed it in, submitted, and you came back into class the next day and said, guys, that was crap. You've got 24 hours to resubmit. Here's what you did wrong. And what I like about that was the fact that it's about the material and not about being tested on it. You know, you guys seemed more interested in making sure that we all knew what we were talking about rather than just handing out marks or not handing out marks. So that was something that really stuck with me. Presentation skills is something that is always required to practice. And through the Diploma of Innovation, you're having to present, whether it's getting up in front of the class and just giving a presentation or presenting to, you know, massive guests like RDA Sydney. You sort of get that opportunity to practice putting on this professional accent and talking to people. Third one is, they say that you can't teach creativity, but you can definitely learn methods and tools to nurture an individual's creativity. Behind me in that bookshelf, I've got a stack of about 150 different methods that you can use to, I guess, spark an idea. And they're the method cards that you'll get in the various subjects. And I still use them. We were told to put them back in the box at the end of class, but I still use them.
It's still helpful. And then your third one that you were like, this is not so great.
Yeah, look, I guess that goes along with what Olivia was saying about just the intensity of it, and having all the assessments due. But honestly, you just sort of knuckle down and get through it. You know, you can have a bad time if you get pinned with a poor group, which is bound to happen at least once or twice. But apart from that, I didn't really find too many negatives with it.
Life skills, you have to learn how to work with a poor group. It
Yeah.
happens in life. Like, you're not always gonna like get the most amazing group. But yeah, I agree. Like, and the pace is something that's definitely, like, we try and have it where the assignments and the assessments build on one another. But I think it's a large amount of material. I mean, it's a subject's worth of material that you're learning in basically, like, you get in for the first day, kind of acclimate, and then you've got basically 2 weeks. Like, yeah. I completely agree with that one. Is there anything else that you guys would want to add, or maybe you've given some examples, Connor, already, where the diplomas had an impact on your future. You've given some already too, Olivia. Is there anything else that you guys would kind of add or say, like, in regards to the value that you feel that you found? Like, value, like time reward ratio. Do you guys feel like it was worth the efforts?
I think it's a great opportunity for networking. You know, you're meeting 30, 40 different students from really, really different areas of the university every time you do a class. The tutors, the guest speakers that come in. You know, I've got all the guest speakers that you brought in on LinkedIn. So do you want
to talk about any of those guest speakers? Were they like people that you would normally get access to? Like, are they,
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's people who are just so high up in the innovation world, but you would never even consider sending them a LinkedIn request. But, you know, I've got most of them and I follow them, and, you know, it's really interesting to see the things that they do and they post every day, but I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet them without that. So I think that was really cool.
Olivia, how about you?
I was going to say that the fact that most of the time you're working in like real life client problem spaces. Like, I remember my very first subject, Impossibilities to Possibilities, we were building a solution on automated vehicles, and we ended up presenting to Sydney Transport, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, that was just something that I wouldn't have expected to do, especially not in my first like 6 months of uni, because I was in first year at the time. But yeah, just making the most of like dealing with real life problems and, you know, like the fact that your solution actually matters and, you know, anything's possible kind of thing. So yeah.
It's your life imagined.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody have questions for Olivia and Connor? You guys want to drop them in the chat, or Rachel, no. Luca, no.
Give them a few seconds to type or find the unmute button. One of the other purposes of this talk is to really give the diploma a human face, like a name and a face. By all means, reach out to each and any one of us, either by email or LinkedIn or elsewise. We're human, we're people, we're happy to answer any questions you have just about any time.
Wow, we must have been good. There's like no questions.
Hi, sorry, I just have one question. Thank you to Olivia and Connor for sharing. That was really great. But just in terms to enrollment, so I'm going to be finishing up this year at UTS. Was wondering if I could still enroll into this diploma or if it's just like for electives during summer and winter.
There are, I guess you've got two options. Do you still have electives available?
I do not know.
Do not. Okay, so that one, I was hoping you were going to say that. I think you can still enroll now. This is probably the last window to enroll, as long as you enroll while you're currently a student. If you were to start your first diploma subject at the end of the year after you've finished the last course credit towards your core degree, that wouldn't work because then it would technically be post-graduation. But if you start now this July, you can finish the diploma out of sync with from your core degree. So you can start the diploma anytime as long as you're enrolled, anytime as you're an actively enrolled student at UTS, but you don't have to finish at the same time. You can't finish with the diploma before your core degree, but you can finish afterwards. So some students have finished the core degree, gone and done some work experience. And the nice thing about the intensive structure is you can tell your employer, co-founder, whoever you're working with or for, and let them know, hey, look, I need to take 2 or 3 weeks off to focus on wrapping up this next block of 8 credits.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. If you have other questions, we're all ears.
And another one, have first year students completed this diploma in their first year?
Completed? No, started, yes. I mean, the desired or the recommended pathway is to take 3 years to finish the diploma. That said, you need to complete 6 of the diploma subjects to finish your diploma. But because they run in July, December, and February, within one calendar, you can already finish 3 subjects. So over 2 years, you could finish the diploma in 2 years. And because some subjects run almost simultaneously, so one will run Mondays and Thursdays, and the other one on Tuesdays and Fridays. So out of the 5 days of the week, you're running two subjects simultaneously. You can actually pack it in to just over a year. It's a bit crazy, but you can do it.
Just to jump in on that, that's actually what I did. So my first session, I just did 1 subject, and my last session, I did 1. But July and December last year, I did 2 in each of those. And it's intense, but you know, if you're ready to knuckle down and just do it, then it's definitely is doable. And you know, I did that with 2 or 3 days of work even. So you don't go completely mad, I promise.
So got new questions here. How do you progress through the diploma if there are no exams? And we'll address the second question separately. All good questions. So what we do, I mean, even we as lecturers, subject coordinators, course directors don't like exams. What we do is give you a live case study, and usually it's, I guess the conventional form is to give you some group work that's usually a combination mainly of individual work to help you gradually form the team. That's based on the concepts that we're teaching you. And usually it's a summary of what you've done through and submitting it through Turnitin. But then towards the end of it, there's a performative aspect of it too, where you're not just doing your work, but you can present it sometimes in a creative way as well, depending on the subject, sometimes a video version too, but there's often a presentation version of it too. And the presentations, we often open it up to the industry partners who are in the classroom, but also some of the other people who are around the ecosystem who are interested in the same space. And this is often their chance to keep an eye out for interesting students who they might want to offer jobs to by the time the diploma ends. So the second report is usually more group oriented, and then towards the end there's usually an individual reflection that comes off the end of it. So it's and that's really should summarize not just what you did, but what you learned, how you developed the capabilities based on what you did. So by the time you finish, you'll have something that you presented to the industry partners, something very project-based that will be part of your professional portfolio. You'll have a document that's more of a learning record. So it's not an exam. We're not testing you on content. We're really testing against the graduate attributes that I showed earlier around complex problem solving and creating value and all that. So let me know if that doesn't answer your question. So the second part of that question was, if I'm doing a bachelor's of business / bachelor's of science and information IT, can I still apply for the bachelor's innovation honors? But you can. So the diploma in innovation is not a bachelor's in innovation. It's a diploma in innovation, not because it's designed at the qualification level of a diploma. If you're into qualification frameworks, we can talk about those. But it's the level of education is the same as the level of education you get at the bachelor's degree, possibly being a little higher. But it's a diploma purely because it's 48 credit points, just half the credit points of a bachelor's degree. So you can easily do a double bachelor's degree, a combined bachelor's degree plus the diploma. So you can do that, unless you're talking about the Bachelor of Entrepreneurship honors, which you can also do. That's simply after you've finished your double degree bachelor's. So yes, you can do a double core degree plus the diploma in innovation on top of it. Some of the earlier documentation, if you find some older documentation, says it's not possible, but that's nonsense. It is possible. And please, feel free to drop a chat to say whether you've got a follow-on question or if that's clarified things. And Annabelle has a question. Hi there. Is there any way of doing the diploma in December and January sessions rather than the July sessions? Not currently. There are some subjects in the July sessions that you can do in the other sessions. So 81539 and Possibilities to Possibilities also runs in December, so you can do it then. Julia's subject around entrepreneur experimenting, we are piloting that in spring term, so there might be a way to do that. The ecosystem subject is still a bit tricky to see if there's a way to do that out of the July session. So not currently. You could do some of the July sessions in the other term, but not all of them. Any other questions, or guys, panelists, do you have any comments?
You're welcome, Declan.
William, do you have any specific questions?
So is this year the only time to enroll in Diploma of Innovation? Like, is it open next year, or?
It's open every year, and
Okay.
2 intake windows. So it's got the intake now for July, and then it has another intake in for the December session.
Okay, thanks.
For most students, the July intake tends to make more sense, but we timetabled a second session of 81539. That's kind of the introductory subject in that recommended sequence. We put a second version of that in December so that students can take an accelerated pathway in if they missed the first window. Can you defer an offer till next year? You can, but I don't recommend it. It's usually just get going, get in there, learn, even just trial the subjects. if you can, trial it towards an elective, or even get enrolled in the diploma, get enrolled in a subject, try the first 2 days of the subject, see how things go by census date, and explore. So don't be too shy about enrolling. I mean, you'll find other students who are in the same boat, other like-minded individuals, and the funnest part of it is learning together as a cohort and learning from each other.
Martin, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I went to an info session, when I was looking at doing the diploma at the start, one of the questions that came up is if I start the diploma, but realize I don't like it and don't want to continue, can that subject be part of my core degree? And from memory, that response was, it's likely that you'd be able to just claim that subject as an elective for your degree. Is that still the case?
It depends on, great question. Like, it depends on your core degree. Some core degrees have choice blocks or elective slots. So in that case, usually all it takes is an e-request, where you can say, okay, I'm going to back out of the diploma. I want to transfer this credit out of the diploma towards the elective or towards the choice block. Usually that's all it takes is an e-request. Some degree programs are quite heavily programmed for accreditation purposes. I believe nursing might be one of those, maybe engineering, where they don't offer a lot of electives because of the accrediting organizations like the Association of Engineers that say you have to pack all of this into your curriculum. But like myself, course directors are all humans. You can actually argue with them and say, actually, no, I do want this course credit because I think this subject is way more interesting than the introduction to thermodynamics. So it is possible. Sometimes it's sometimes it's straightforward. It's just clicking through the student admin stuff. Sometimes it's an e-request, and other times it's an email to the course director. We know you've got questions on your mind, ones that you're shy to ask.
When do the first class start? In July?
They start, I'm saying finish on, start June 28th. It's technically July session. So, I think the Monday subjects start on June 28th, and then the Tuesday subjects start on the 29th, and then they finish on the 15th or 16th. So the date should be on dipin.edu.au. I believe Michelle, you said that was tweaked and corrected, so those dates should be completely up to date that you see on the Diploma's homepage. It's kind of the first expanding drop down thing that you'll see on the website of upcoming subjects. I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if any of you guys have any questions about your timetabling, your workload planning, or not workload planning, your course planning rather, you drop me an email, talk to our APO, talk to Julia. If you have any other questions about the student's point of view, of course, Olivia and Connor would probably be more than happy to answer any questions. But email or LinkedIn were probably easy enough to find.
Well, so you guys can join our LinkedIn page. We'll send it in the follow-up email so you can kind of see like what's going on and what we're doing. No other questions?
Doing a bachelor's of engineering. After the diploma, is it possible to do the degree of innovation as a double degree? So this is I'm guessing you're talking about the BCII as the double degree program. If you, here, maybe I'll pull up the slides here. Zoom again. Share screen. Screen 2, please. Let's pull up the structure here for a second. There we go. So if you start with the core degree and the diploma in innovation, these, oh, whoops. Let's turn the pen on. Pen, please. These two introductory creative intelligence subjects are pretty much the only two that really overlap with the BCII. So if you start with a diploma and finish these two subjects, then you can apply for an internal course transfer that combines your core degree with the BCII. So your core degree has to be compatible with the BCII as a double degree program, and you have to finish the first two creative intelligence subjects. And there's some minimum grade requirements. You can find those on the FAQ. And then that way you start with the diploma, but then transfer to the BCII. So you can't do your core degree plus the diploma and then into the BCII. What you can do is your core degree plus the diploma plus the bachelor's in entrepreneurship honors as kind of that lived fourth year experience. So there are a couple different ways, a couple different pathways through there. Just close. My Zoom's freezing up. Hold on, maybe if I stop share. Yeah, PowerPoint's gone frozen on me. Pull up the website. And let's try this again. So go to the diploma webpage. Probably having issues with me hosting Zoom. On the left-hand side, oops, I've stopped screen sharing. On the left-hand side under FAQs, towards the bottom of that, there's a slide pack that explains a lot of the transfers. So I want more creative intelligence. I need a visual guide. So this is it. So if you click on that link, that'll pull up a slide deck that we developed that really tries to explain the different pathways in from a slightly more technical level of how do you get from one course to another course. So it's slightly out of date, but not much. So you recognize some of the thinking here. So here's how to smush the diploma into or half of the diploma as a choice block or electives. Here's how to transfer into the BCII. It just depends on your specific situation. So by all means, if you have questions around that, shoot us an email. Alrighty.
Cool.
Anyone else have any lingering questions? All right. So thank you for sticking around, asking really good questions. I mean, this is our opportunity to learn from you and see what students are interested in. Thank you, Olivia and Connor and Julia, for co-hosting this year. And I guess making sure the students hear the real story of what it's like. I mean, that usually tells a much better story than if Julia and I give you the spiel. So, I mean, closing comments would be just apply now. It makes it so much easier once you're in student admin to then say, great, I'm going to choose these subjects, try them out, and then you can always decide later.
Cool.
Super. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Olivia.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Connor. Bye, Martin.
Bye.